skyscrapers that symbolize the size and importance of the Western Hemisphere's greatest metropolis. Business and shopping streets reflect the prosperity of the city, as do the broad avenues lined with tall apartment houses and great hotels, some of them famous around the world.
The Big Apple, the capital of the world, the city that never sleeps. All of these phrases have been used to describe New York City, particularly focusing on the borough of Manhattan. And for a very long time, Manhattan was New York City's epicenter, with financial, media, and entertainment hubs helping create the brand of a global city. But starting from the late 90s and early 2000s, residential and commercial policies have allowed Brooklyn to be the focus of intense private investment. This, along with the influx of newcomers, has pushed Brooklyn to become a hip and expensive brand. Neighborhoods such as Park Slope, Fort Greene, and downtown Brooklyn were one of the first communities to go through gentrification, causing a change both in the landscape and demographics of these neighborhoods. Bushwick is now going through the same process, but has an individual story. During the Great Depression, Homeowners Loan Corporation was given the authority to deem certain neighborhoods worthy or unworthy, a practice known as redlining. This, along with white flight, created racial and economic segregation and left Bushwick, like many other neighborhoods, in a broken state of unsustainability. Having no hope for the future, landlords began putting less effort in maintaining their buildings, and beginning in the 70s, residents of Bushwick began to experience the fires. Buildings were often burned by their owners for insurance money, but also underwent electrical fires because of how unkept they were. The historic blackout on July 13, 1977, caused by 2 lightning bolts, really just made everything worse. In Bushwick, hundreds of people began breaking into stores along Broadway, taking furniture, TVs, food, and everything else they could carry. This created a massive response from legal enforcement.
3,776 people arrested. Thousands more fled the gutted stores before police arrived.
And really pushed Bushwick into its lowest point, causing the neighborhood to have a notorious rep of violence, crime, and drugs. It wasn't until the late 80s when the NYPD placed specific crime-fighting approaches to bring about their conception of order to the neighborhood. Now fast forward to 2011 when Joe Ficalora created the Bushwick Collective and showcased the first mural on Troutman Avenue. Joe was born and raised in Bushwick during the 80s and experienced many of the fires, crime, and violence as his father was murdered when he was younger. After losing his mother, Joe was looking for a way to release his painful memories that were associated with growing up in Bushwick. He was really looking for a way to beautify his neighborhood by starting just with one wall. And although he is not an artist himself, he thought he could bring artists together to better his neighborhood. Within the past few years, Joe has brought in an array of local, national, and international artists to collaborate on several blocks of walls in the neighborhood, creating a free hotspot for tourists and members of the new community to come visit. The Bushwick Collective has gotten so popular that it has even received attention from Complex, Tribeca, and the New York Times. Street artists, city officials, and locals have praised Joe for creating a free space where graffiti artists can express themselves, all while people enjoy the art. Some even credit Joe for helping clean up the neighborhood.
This shit was worthless to everybody in the past. Nobody thought it was beautiful until somebody decided to open up a beautiful little restaurant and a beautiful little grocery market with 24 hours. And of course, everything comes with problems, and we're not cool with not everything, but the neighborhood changing has been cool.
And while Joe, a Brooklyn native, may think the changes coming to Brooklyn are, for the most part, positive, there is something about the rows of beautiful murals that screams Richard Florida's idea of the creative class to me. They are the clustering force of young creatives and tech workers in metropolitan areas that, without a doubt, as Richard Florida discusses, will lead to greater economic prosperity. They are the hipsters who love arts and music and really love coffee. So for my project, I will be looking at the implication of the Bushwick Collective in helping promote this new demographic of the creative class. Bushwick is one of the many neighborhoods that is going through gentrification in Brooklyn. But the process of gentrification signals that Brooklyn is on its way to become an additional space for the global city. So what role does this free, essentially good-intended initiative that Joe has created take when it comes to gentrification? Who is the community that he is catering for? And what community has he excluded with the Bushwick Collective? And of course, this may not be his intention at all. And most importantly, what does this say about the art that has been criminalized before? What art is accepted and what art is not accepted?